To get started, this is the fabric I'm working with. I have my fabric scissors, tailor's chalk, my marker, my pattern master, and of course my tape roll. I've gone ahead to draft a basic dress block. This is a combination of both your basic bodice and your basic skirts. So your half scale bodice would end along the waist and your skirt would continue from the waist all the way down. So it is very simple and very easy. Just in case you don't know how to draft this, you can check my channel, check the videos I have. I would put a link in the description box so that you can also check it out to see. Now let me go over what I have done. This is my front and this is the back. Because there's going to be a collar, I'm choosing a neck width of 2.5 inches and 3.2 inches neck depth for the front, 2.5 inches neck width for the back, and half-inch neck depth for the back. I've gone ahead to do my contouring along the underbust because I want it to be well contoured. I want it to be well fitted along the underbust. Along the waist at the back, I did 1 inch back tightly, and because of that, I won't be putting a dart here. So disregard this dart. I will just slash this line into two and have my center back panel on this side and my side back panel on this side. So basically, this is what I have done so far. What I'll go ahead and do is, because this dress is going to be having a yoke and the yoke will still be the fabric, I'm going to be determining the depth of my yoke, and I want it to be 6 inches deep. I'll get the midpoint of this, connect it to my bust point, I will take half an inch for that on both sides, and then I would connect. So here is going to be my yoke. This is my center front, side front, side back, center back. I have not added any seam allowance to this pattern. Now the length of this is 37.5, but my actual length I'm working with is 45. So while cutting on the fabric, I'm going to be adding up to make it 45 inches. I don't want to add up more pattern paper. That was why I stopped at this length. So what I'll go ahead and do now is to slash this out. Slashing, I'm going to be adding my zipper allowance to the back just to make it very easier for me. So I'm using 1.2 inch. You could use 1 inch, depends on what you want. I'm going to be slashing all like this. I've cut out my back, so this is my side back and center back. Now to cut out the front, I just want to show something. I have closed my dart here. I remember we have a dart here, so I want to close it and withdraw my armhole. And to close your dart successfully, you would have to slash through one, then close this one. I'll close this one. Then I'm going to be, this is my armhole. I'm going to link my armhole to this pattern and then withdraw. This is going to be my new armhole now. So I can go ahead and cut this. And then I can take off my dart and take out my yoke too. Moving on to the fabric cutting, I'm going to be starting with the lining, and I have gone ahead to place the lining on fold. I have also marked my desired length. Remember I said I was going to be doing this on my fabric, and I've chopped down the length on my lining to make it easier for me when I want to spread. I'm also adding my M allowance of 1 inch along the M. To spread, I'm going to be using 3 inches to spread, which I've already marked along one side of my side front. This is the side front panel we are working with. So I'm using 3 inches to spread, which is what I've marked, and I'm going to be connecting it to the waist line. So this is how you're going to be spreading. You mark along the M and you connect it to the waistline. It's going to spread out from the waistline. I'm also going to be doing likewise for the other side of my side front. So for the side front, we are going to be spreading on both sides of the pattern. You can use your desired spread measurements. You could go for 2 inches, you could go for 3 inches. Just have it at the back of your mind that the more you mark, the wider and bigger, more voluminous your dress is going to be. Afterwards, I'm going over to mark down my side seam allowance of 1.5 inch. This is very important for you to do because you don't want to be short of measurement, or you don't want your fabric to be too tight at the end of the day. So I'm just going over to mark my side seam allowance, and once I'm done, I also went over to mark my half an inch allowance along the area where I will join to the yoke, and also along the area where I'm going to be joining to the center front. Now this method of spreading was the same way I did for the center front, although for the center front, since we are going to be cutting on fold, we are only going to be spreading along the part whereby you would join to the side front. You won't spread along the part where you are cutting on fold because there is no need, since you're cutting that part on fold, and I'm going to be showing us that very soon. So this is my center front. You can see I folded my lining on fold. Rather, I cut my lining on fold, extended the length, and I also spread along the parts where I'm going to be joining to the side front. It is pretty easy and very simple to do. For the side back, I did likewise, just like I did for the side front. Placed my fabric on fold and also spread. When you're spreading, you would want to make sure that you are using the same spread volume, the same measurements for your spread for both the front and the back. This is to ensure you have uniform volume of fabric in the front and also at the back. This is very important. You don't want your front to be wider than the back. Your dress would look funny at the end of the day. So you are going to be using the same spread measurements. Once I was through with my spread, I also went over to mark down my seam allowance. Remember, I said this is very, very important because you don't want to be short of measurements later on. So always endeavor to put in your seam allowance. Like, never forget, never forget. It's something you don't want to experience at all. Once I was done cutting, the next thing I did was to move over to the center back. Now to the center back, just like the center front, we are only going to be spreading along just the parts where we are going to be fixing to the side back. I'm not going to be spreading along the parts where I'm going to be fixing the zipper. Just as you can see, I'm just cutting that part straight out. So this is very important for you. You're not spreading along the part you are fixing to the zipper. I've gone ahead to cut out my fabric. I didn't get to show you guys how I cut the yoke, but it's just place your pattern on fold and cut out your yoke. This is my side front. I went ahead to put in interfacing along the bust area just to reinforce that area and make it more sturdy. And this is also my center front, the main fabric. This is the fabric that I'm working with. I also put in flexible interfacing along the center front too. Now I've also got my lining for my front panel pieces. Likewise, this is the lining I'm using for the center front, so it is the same length. The lining and the fabric is the same length. You could actually make yours 1 inch shorter, but I made mine the same length. That's my side front. I also have my side back. So you can see that I only spread along one part. So I have the lining and the main fabric, and I also have my center back, lining and main fabric too. The next thing also is I have my sleeve here. So for this sleeve, it's a basic sleeve actually, but it is this big because I use my exact measurements. So instead of dividing my round sleeve by 2, I used the exact measurement, and that's why this sleeve is this big, and I did that for more volume. What I'll do next is joining of the panel pieces together. I joined all of my panel pieces together, every single thing for both the front and the back. I even fixed the yoke too. Now, if you have been sewing, this part will not be very difficult for you because you would understand what I have done so far. So you can see that I have joined both the center front, side front, the yoke, even along the shoulder area. You can see I've joined along the shoulder area. That means I have joined both the front and the back together. Like, I've done a lot of work. And I also did likewise for my lining too. Because of the interfacing that I put, the bust area is pronounced, and that was what I wanted to achieve, and ST actually did this work for me perfectly. Now this is my lining. I've also done likewise for my lining. I've joined everything. I did everything at once. The next thing I'm doing is I'm going to be folding my fabric into two along the neckline, making sure that the shoulders match up properly, and I'm going to be measuring all the way from the back to the front. So whatever measurements I have is what I'm going to be using to cut out my pattern. So whatever measurement I have minus 1 inch, that 1 inch is going to be the zipper allowance, and I don't want the collar to extend to the zipper. That is what I'm going to be using to draft out the collar. I have a detailed tutorial on this channel on how to draft a shirt collar, that is both the collar stand and the collar fall. But for this dress, I'm only going to be using the collar fall. So if you don't know how to draft a collar, I would advise you to see that tutorial. It was the same method I used, and that's why I don't want to go through repeating it. So this is the collar fall that I'm talking about, and I have 2 pieces of each because I'm going to be fixing it on both sides of the neckline. So placing it at the center, placing 1 piece at the center, I will sew it all around the neckline from the front all the way to the back, and I will do likewise for the other collar too. Once I'm done sewing the collar pieces around the neckline, I would also use my lining to conceal the raw edges around the neckline. So I'm going to be sandwiching the collar in between the main fabric and the lining. I'm done turning the entire fabric with the lining. I turned the hem, the collar area, and also the side seam of the fabric with the lining individually. I did this one after the other. The next thing would be to fix the pocket. I have my pocket that is letter D in shape. There are so many ways you can cut out your pockets, but for this I'm using this letter D shaped pocket. Right from the armhole area of one part of this dress, I'm starting with one part of the back. I'm going to be marking 8.5 inches downward. Now the goal is for you to place your pockets around the waist area. Okay, so I'm going to be placing the pocket from that mark away, and also making sure I placed it at the seam allowance from the edge. That's the side seam allowance. So my side seam allowance is 1 inch, meaning I'm placing my pocket 1 inch away from the side and 8.5 inch away from the armhole. So I'm just going over to pin this down. I'll repeat the same process again for this part of the front. I'm going to be marking the same 8.5 inches away from the armhole. Once I've done that, I would also place my pocket 1 inch away from the side seam, since that is my side seam allowance. And that's because if you place it at the edge, your pocket has a really funny shape. It doesn't really come out nice when you place it just at the edge. So just place it at your exact side seam measurement. After pinning the pocket in place, the next thing I did was to sew it down by 1/4 of an inch. You don't need too much fabric for this, just sew it down by 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to repeat it likewise for this other part of my garment too. So I'm done fixing my pockets in place, and I also ironed. So, and you should also place your pockets in this position. It should be facing outward and not inward, because when you put your hand in your pocket, it goes to the wrong side of your fabric. Now, sewing the side seam, I'm going to be starting from the armhole straight down and then take it around the pocket area. This creates an opening for the pocket, and then sew it all the way down. And that's because if you just sew it all the way down from your armhole to the hem, you're going to be closing that pocket area. So we need to create an opening for that, and that is why you need to sew around the pocket. So guys, this is the final work of this dress. It's been a long one. For the sleeve, I fixed an elastic around the sleeve and also pleated around the armhole. There was really nothing serious
about the sleeve. If you have found this tutorial helpful, kindly give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please subscribe. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and you can also write down suggestions of tutorials that I can make. And if it is within my reach, I'll try as much as possible to do it. Thank you so much, guys, for sticking around. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to watch every content that I post here, and to everyone that has subscribed. Thank you so much. See ya in the next tutorial. Goodbye.